You had one job: restore a table. You were not hired to dig through my family's private life.
I didn't dig through anything. Your mother put this inside the table 22 years ago.
You have no idea what you're talking about.
I know exactly where I found it.
Leave my father's house.
No. If she walks through that door tonight, you will spend the rest of your life believing the wrong person betrayed you.
Welcome to Tales Through Time, where love is tested, secrets are exposed, and even broken hearts can find their way home.
This wasn't caused by age. Someone hit this table.
What is that doing here?
I'm having it restored.
No. Whatever my father offered you, I'll pay it.
Your father hired me.
This is my family.
Then maybe you should ask why he wants it saved.
I don't need to ask.
If you want a new table, Mr. Ashford, buy one. I restore the ones people aren't ready to lose.
The table had been hidden for 22 years, not covered carefully in some temperature-controlled archive. Hidden. Shoved into one of the Ashford estate's oldest storage rooms beneath sheets, boxes, and furniture nobody wanted badly enough to throw away. Graham Ashford had not looked at it properly since the night his wife left. Yet now, at 74, he wanted it restored. Nia Brooks had spent enough years around old furniture to know that people rarely paid thousands of dollars to restore wood. They restored memory, a grandmother's chair, a father's desk, the first dining table a struggling couple bought before becoming wealthy. Objects mattered because people attached themselves to them. And Graham Ashford was attached to this table in ways he clearly did not want to explain. It had been designed by his wife, Cecilia, during the early years of their marriage. She chose the walnut herself. She worked with an artisan for months. Every important Ashford family event eventually happened around it. Lauren's first birthday dinner after starting school. Julian learning to use a knife and fork properly. Christmas mornings, arguments, apologies, guests, celebrations. Then one night, everything ended. Cecilia left, the table cracked, and the Ashford family stopped sitting around it. Nia asked Graham why he wanted it restored now. For several seconds, the old man simply stared at the long split running through the walnut. Then he said, "Because I'm tired of pretending broken things disappear just because you put them in another room." It was the most honest thing Graham would say for quite some time. Julian returned to the estate frequently during the restoration. At first, Nia assumed he was checking on his father. Eventually, she realized he was checking on the table. He hated it, not casually, personally. And little by little, Nia learned why. Cecilia Ashford had disappeared when Julian was 14. Several days before she left, a priceless necklace vanished from the Ashford family collection. It had belonged to Julian's grandmother. There were photographs of it stretching back generations. The necklace was never supposed to leave the family. According to the story Julian had grown up believing, Cecilia took it. When Graham confronted her, she admitted responsibility. Then she disappeared. To 14-year-old Julian, the sequence was devastatingly simple. His mother stole from their family, his father confronted her, and instead of facing what she had done, Cecilia left them. Julian waited for her anyway, for weeks, then months. Every car approaching the estate made him look toward the front door. Every telephone ringing made him wonder if she was calling. She never returned. 3 years later, Cecilia died. Whatever hope 14-year-old Julian had refused to surrender disappeared with her. So Julian did what hurt children sometimes become very good at doing. He converted grief into anger. Anger was easier. Nia discovered the markings accidentally. She was working beneath the table, cleaning years of dirt from the underside, when she found a shallow carved line. Beside it, J. 5. Another, J. 7. Then, L. 10. J. 10. They continued across several years. Cecilia had been recording her children's heights beneath the family table. The final mark for Julian read, J. 14, the year she disappeared. Julian entered while Nia was cleaning it. He stopped. For several seconds, neither spoke. His fingers eventually moved across one of the small marks. He looked far younger than 36 in that moment. Then his expression closed again. "Remove them." Nia looked at him. "They're original. I don't care." "I do." Julian gave her a hard look. And why exactly should that matter? Because your father hired a conservator, not someone to sand away everything he doesn't want to remember. He stared at the marks again. They're scratches. No. Naya carefully brushed away another layer of dust. They're evidence. Of what? That something mattered. Julian said nothing. He left the room. But he never asked her to remove the markings again. While working on the table's damaged center, Naya confirmed something she had already suspected. The split wasn't natural. Someone had struck the table. Hard. When she asked Graham directly, he finally admitted it. He had done it. The night Cecilia left. He had returned home after discovering that the necklace was missing. He confronted Cecilia. She confessed. Graham became furious. At some point during the argument, he picked up a heavy wooden serving board and struck the table. The central joint split. Cecilia left hours later. Julian happened to enter the room before Graham finished telling the story. He had clearly heard enough, but his question surprised both of them. Who saw her take it? Graham looked at him. What? The necklace. Julian walked farther into the room. Who actually saw Mom take it? Graham hesitated. No one. Julian frowned. So how did you know? Your mother told me. That answer had satisfied Julian for 22 years. For some reason, it didn't satisfy him anymore. That evening, Nia worked later than expected. She was carefully stabilizing the section containing Cecilia's height markings when Julian appeared in the doorway. You're still here. Nia didn't look up. Damaged things don't fix themselves on a schedule. I thought experts had working hours. We do. Wealthy families with 22-year-old secrets apparently don't. Julian almost smiled. He walked closer. For once, there was no hostility between them. He watched her apply a tiny amount of adhesive to the loosened wood around his 14-year-old height mark. You're keeping that one too. Yes. I've decided I hate your professional ethics. You'll survive. Silence. Then Julian asked, Do you ever think something is too damaged to restore? Nia finally looked at him. Furniture? He smiled faintly. Sure. Nia knew perfectly well he wasn't asking about furniture anymore. Sometimes. Something changed between them. Neither moved, neither looked away. Julian seemed about to say something. Footsteps interrupted them. Lauren entered. She stopped when she saw how close they were standing. The moment disappeared immediately. Lauren's smile was polite. Too polite. Julian, Dad's looking for you, he nodded. Then looked back at Nia. Good night, Ms. Brooks. Good night, Mr. Ashford. Julian walked out. Lauren didn't follow immediately. Instead, she looked toward the underside of the table. What exactly are you repairing there? Nia glanced at her. The same thing I've been repairing all week. Lauren nodded, but her eyes remained on the table. Over the next several days, Lauren became unusually interested in the restoration. Had Graham asked Nia to search the table? Had she found anything stored inside it? Were there hidden compartments? Did antique tables sometimes contain cavities? Nia found the question strange, especially because Lauren tried very hard to make them sound casual. Eventually, Nia asked, Is there something you're worried I'll find? Lauren laughed. No. Too quickly, then changed the subject. For the first time, Nia began wondering whether Graham was the only person in the Ashford family hiding something. The storm came several nights later. Heavy rain knocked out electricity to part of the estate. Nia packed her precision tools away. She couldn't safely continue detailed work under poor lighting. Julian appeared with 2 battery lamps. You're leaving because the lights went out? I occasionally acknowledge the existence of tomorrow. That finally made him laugh. The cook had already gone home, so Julian found leftover food. They ate in the kitchen, not at the restored dining table, not surrounded by staff. Not billionaire Julian Ashford and the woman his father hired. Just Julian and Nia. That was where he finally told her what the table really meant to him. After Cecilia disappeared, 14-year-old Julian had sat there every evening, waiting. He would pretend to do homework while listening for her car, for months. Eventually, Graham removed the table. Julian believed his father was trying to help him move forward. Nia listened without interrupting. Then Julian asked, What do you think of her? Who? My mother. Nia looked at him. You want me to judge a dead woman I've never met? You've heard enough. No. Julian leaned back. What haven't you heard? Her. That silenced him. Nia continued. I've heard what your father remembers. I've heard what you remember. I've heard what the family decided happened. What's the difference? Sometimes everything. They looked at one another. This time, there was no interruption. Julian reached slowly across the kitchen island, not quite touching her hand. Nia didn't move away. Then the lights returned. Bright, sudden, almost rude. Both looked away. Neither mentioned what nearly happened. But after that night, they stopped pretending there was nothing between them. Julian eventually asked Nia to dinner. She declined. He looked genuinely surprised. Why? Because I'm still working for your father. So? So I'm not dating someone whose family is paying me. Julian stared at her. You think I'd interfere with your work? No. Then what's the problem? Nia smiled slightly. You've spent your entire life being able to move things faster because you're Julian Ashford. He almost protested. She continued. This isn't moving faster. Then return to her work. Julian should have been irritated. Instead, he smiled. For possibly the first time in his life, something he wanted would simply have to wait. The discovery happened 3 days before the restored table was scheduled to return permanently to the dining room. Nia was reinforcing the damaged central support when she found a thin strip of wood. It didn't match the original craftsmanship. Someone had added it later, carefully, deliberately. Nia photographed everything before touching it, then removed the strip. Behind it was a narrow cavity. Inside were 3 objects: a dried flower, a small photograph, and an envelope. The photograph showed Cecilia sitting outdoors with Lauren and Julian when both children were young. Everyone was laughing. Julian couldn't have been older than 8. Then Nia looked at the envelope. The handwriting was faded but perfectly legible. For Julian. When he's ready, she did not open it. Instead, she went directly to Graham. The moment he saw Cecilia's handwriting, something changed in his face. Nia noticed immediately. Did you know this was here? Graham stared at the envelope, then said something stranger. I hoped it was. Nia frowned. What does that mean? He didn't answer. She told him Julian needed to see the letter immediately. Graham asked her for one thing: wait until the table was returned to the dining room, and make sure Lauren was there. Why Lauren? Graham looked older suddenly. Because whatever Cecilia wrote, I suspect it concerns all of us. And so, 6 weeks after Nia first walked into the Ashford estate, everyone gathered around the restored table. Lauren saw the envelope and went pale. She immediately questioned Nia. Where exactly had she found it? How could she prove it had been there? Had anyone witnessed the discovery? Could someone have planted it? The questions became accusations. Julian misread Lauren's fear completely. He believed she was protecting the family from an outsider, and the protective instinct he had spent his entire life directing toward his father and sister took over. He accused Nia of crossing a line. Nia told him she had crossed nothing. His mother had hidden the letter. Julian ordered her to leave. Nia turned. Graham stopped her. If she walks through that door tonight, you will spend the rest of your life believing the wrong person betrayed you. Julian stared at his father, then slowly sat back down. Nia placed the envelope in front of him, and for the first time, Julian saw the words written across it. For Julian. When he's ready. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened it. Cecilia's letter began simply. She told Julian that if he was reading it, then somehow the truth had survived longer than she had. Then came the sentence that shattered 22 years of certainty. She had not stolen the necklace. Julian stopped reading, looked at Graham, then Lauren. Lauren was crying before he continued. Cecilia explained that someone she loved had been 17 years old. Frightened, in love, and convinced one terrible mistake would destroy her future. Julian slowly turned toward Lauren. No. Lauren couldn't look at him. Cecilia had written that she accepted blame because she believed she could protect her daughter temporarily, fix the situation privately, and explain everything later. She had been wrong. Julian lowered the letter. Lauren? Lauren finally spoke. She was 17. She had fallen in love with a young man Graham considered unsuitable. When he got into serious financial trouble, she decided she could help him. She took their grandmother's necklace, not intending to keep the money. She thought she could pawn it temporarily, recover it, return it. Nobody would ever know. But Cecilia discovered what she had done. Lauren begged her mother not to tell Graham. Cecilia agreed. Then the necklace's disappearance was discovered sooner than expected. Graham confronted Cecilia, and Cecilia accepted responsibility. Julian looked at his sister as if he no longer recognized her. "You watched me hate her," Lauren cried. "I was 17. You weren't 17 for 22 years. That landed. Lauren had no defense. She admitted the truth. At 18, she had been ashamed. At 20, terrified. At 25, it had already been so many years that confessing felt impossible. Every birthday passed, every Christmas, every year Julian spoke about their mother with anger, and every year Lauren told herself it was too late to tell him. Eventually, protecting herself became easier than protecting Cecilia's memory. Julian whispered, "You let me hate a dead woman because you were afraid I'd hate you." Lauren cried harder. "Yes." Julian stood, walked away from the table, and nobody followed him. Julian stood alone in the adjoining sitting room, still holding Cecilia's letter. For 22 years, he had believed his mother chose a necklace over him. Now he knew she had sacrificed her reputation to protect his sister. He thought about every cruel thing he had ever said about Cecilia, every time he dismissed her, every memory he had deliberately poisoned because hating her hurt less than missing her. Naya watched from the doorway but did not approach. This was not hers to fix. After a long silence, Julian returned to the dining room. Lauren remained seated. Graham had barely moved. Julian sat again. He looked at his father. "All those years?" Graham met his eyes. "You believed her too?" A pause. Then Graham answered carefully. "I believed what your mother told me. Technically true." Julian nodded slowly. He looked almost sorry for his father, as though Graham too had been victimized by Cecilia's sacrifice, and Graham allowed him to believe it. That was when Naya noticed Lauren. Lauren wasn't looking at Julian anymore. She was staring at Graham. Not with guilt, with anger. Julian folded Cecilia's letter. He looked exhausted. "I can't do any more tonight." Lauren's face tightened. Graham looked down. Julian began to rise. Then Lauren spoke. "Julian," he stopped. Lauren swallowed. "Before you decide who you're angry with?" Graham's head came up. "Lauren?" One word. Quiet, but unmistakably a warning. Lauren turned toward him. 22 years of fear seemed to fall away from her face. Then she looked back at her brother. "There's something else." Julian slowly sat again. Lauren looked directly at Graham. "Tell him." Graham didn't move. Lauren's voice broke. "Tell him when you found out." Julian stared between them. "What?" Graham said nothing. "Dad?" Still nothing. And in that silence, Julian understood before anyone explained. His expression changed. "When did you know?" 2 days after Cecilia left, Graham had received a telephone call. A jeweler had recognized the Ashford surname. Lauren had used her real name when trying to pawn the necklace. The jeweler contacted the family. Graham recovered it privately, then confronted Cecilia. Cecilia finally told him everything. Lauren had taken it. Cecilia had accepted responsibility to protect their daughter. At that moment, Graham had possessed everything he needed to bring his wife home. He could have told Julian there had been a misunderstanding. He could have restored Cecilia's name. He could have ended the lie before it became Julian's childhood truth. But too many people already knew Cecilia had supposedly stolen the necklace. Graham had publicly condemned her. Members of the extended Ashford family had taken sides. Business associates had heard. Admitting the truth meant admitting that Graham Ashford had humiliated his own wife before knowing the facts. It also meant exposing Lauren. So Graham chose the solution that protected everyone except Cecilia. He allowed the lie to stand. Julian barely seemed able to breathe. "You knew she didn't steal it?" "Yes." 2 days later? "Yes. And I spent 22 years thinking she abandoned us?" Graham's eyes filled. "Yes." Julian turned toward Lauren. "You knew he knew?" Lauren nodded. "Not immediately, Mom told me before she died. Julian looked back at Graham, then asked the question that destroyed whatever remained. Did she try to come back? Graham said nothing. Julian leaned forward. Did she? Yes. Cecilia had asked to see her children. Graham refused. He told her that if Lauren was going to remain protected, the story had to remain consistent. Cecilia wrote letters anyway, to Lauren, to Julian. Graham intercepted Julian's. Julian's voice dropped almost to a whisper. You kept her letters? For a time. Where are they? Graham closed his eyes. I destroyed some. Nobody moved. Julian stared at him. You destroyed them. I thought. No. Julian stood. You don't get to tell me what you thought. Graham tried again. I was protecting this family, and Julian finally said it. The sentence that had been waiting for 22 years. You protected everyone except the woman who protected all of us. Graham tried to explain that he had been ashamed. That every year made the truth harder to admit. That Cecilia herself had originally accepted responsibility. Julian stopped him. What happened 22 years ago is not the only reason I'm angry. Graham looked confused. Julian glanced at Lauren, then understood exactly what had happened moments earlier. When I asked whether you believed Mom, you knew what I meant. Graham said nothing. And you let me think she had fooled you too? Silence. Tonight, Julian's voice cracked. You were still doing it tonight. That hurt Graham more than anything else Julian had said. Because it was true. Given one final opportunity to tell the truth without being forced, Graham had again chosen silence. Not because Julian was 14. Not because Lauren was 17. Not because there was a scandal. Tonight there was nothing left to protect. Except himself. Graham lowered his head. I was afraid, Julian laughed once, bitterly. So was she. Then he walked out. Nia found Julian outside. He was standing beneath the covered terrace, watching rainwater drip from the roof. For once there was no anger left in him. Only grief. He apologized for humiliating her. Not elegantly. Not with billionaire charm. Simply, I was wrong. Nia accepted the apology. Then Julian asked, What am I supposed to do with this? She knew he wasn't talking about Cecilia's letter. He was talking about Lauren, Graham, his childhood. Every memory that now had to be reconsidered. Nia stood beside him. You don't have to do anything tonight. He's still my father. Yes. She is still my sister. Yes. And I love them. Nia looked at him. Yes. Julian shook his head. How is that supposed to make sense? Nia answered, Your father loved you and failed you. A pause. Your sister loved you and lied to you. Another. Your mother left the house but didn't abandon you. Julian looked at her. More than one thing can be true at once. He asked, Do you think I should forgive them? Nia shook her head. I'm the woman who repaired your table, Julian. She handed him the restoration folder. I'm not going to tell you how to repair your family. Inside were photographs. The table before restoration, during repair, after restoration. Julian examined the final photograph. The dark wooden butterfly joints were clearly visible across the repaired crack. You could have hidden these. Yes. Why didn't you? Nia looked toward the house. Because it happened. Several days passed before Julian saw Lauren again. She came to Nia's workshop. Not because Nia had summoned her to reconcile with Julian. Nia had simply informed both siblings that the photograph found inside the table belonged to them. Julian happened to arrive first. Lauren entered minutes later. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, Lauren placed the photograph on the workbench between them. I don't expect you to forgive me. Julian said nothing. Lauren continued. I spent 22 years being grateful that Mom protected me. Her voice shook. I never stopped long enough to admit that I was allowing you to pay for it. Julian looked at her. I would have hated you, Lauren nodded. I know. At 17, I would have hated you. She wiped her face. I know. But I would have grown up. Lauren's eyes closed. And maybe eventually I would have understood. Yes. You didn't give me that chance. No. That was the first apology Lauren gave him without adding an explanation afterward. No, but. No, I was young. No, Dad told me. Just, no. It didn't fix anything, but something small changed. For the first time in 22 years, their relationship was standing on the truth. Graham was harder. Julian eventually returned to the estate. His father sat alone at the restored table. The repaired crack ran between them. Graham did not ask Julian to forgive him. Instead, he said, "I loved your mother." Julian's expression barely changed. Graham continued, "But when loving her required me to admit that I had been wrong in front of everyone, I chose my pride." Julian looked at him. "And when she asked for us, I chose fear. And tonight," Graham swallowed, "the same thing." For the first time, Graham was not rewriting himself as a man who had only made difficult choices. He was naming what they had actually been. Julian said, "You don't get forgiven because you finally became brave after she died." Graham nodded. "I know. I may forgive you one day." Graham looked at him. "But you don't choose when." Another nod. "I know." For perhaps the first time in his adult life, Graham Ashford accepted a consequence he could neither negotiate nor control. Eventually, Naya finished the restoration. She packed away her tools, closed the project folder, sent Graham the final documentation. The contract was officially complete. The following evening, Julian appeared at her workshop. Nia looked up. "You know the table is at your house now." "I know. So unless another piece of furniture has emotionally traumatized your family." Julian laughed, then became serious. "The contract's finished." "Yes. You're no longer working for my father." "No." "Good." Nia raised an eyebrow. Julian took a breath. "Dinner?" She pretended to consider it. "At the table?" "Absolutely not," she smiled. "Then yes." He started to walk away. Nia called after him. "Julian?" He turned. "Eventually." He understood immediately. Eventually, they would sit at that table too, but not yet. Some things deserved time. 6 months later, the Ashford dining room was occupied again. Not for a gala, not for business. Not because anyone was pretending everything had returned to normal. It hadn't. Lauren was there. Her relationship with Julian remained imperfect, but honest. Graham arrived last. For most of his life, Graham had automatically occupied the chair at the head of the table. That evening, he didn't. Nobody had told him not to. He simply chose another seat. The head chair remained empty. Nia sat beside Julian. Their relationship had grown slowly over the previous 6 months. No dramatic proposal, no billionaire spectacle. Just meals, walks, arguments, laughter, and two people learning one another without trying to accelerate the process. Before dinner began, Julian placed something in the center of the table. Cecilia's photograph, the one that had been hidden inside it. Lauren's eyes filled. Graham looked away briefly. Julian reached beneath the tabletop. His fingers touched one of the dark repair joints Naya had installed. The fracture remained visible. It always would. Naya noticed. "You still hate that I left the repair showing?" Julian looked at her, then at Lauren, then Graham, then his mother's photograph. "No." His thumb moved slowly across the repaired wood. "I think I'm finally beginning to understand it. The table wasn't new, it wasn't perfect. It hadn't forgotten what happened, but it was strong again. And perhaps that was all healing was ever supposed to be. Not returning people to who they were before something broke, but giving them the chance to become something honest afterward."